Welcome to a new episode of Black and Blue Garage. I have purchased this tool from Amazon and I think it's going to help me out a lot. There are certainly more expensive and fancier versions of this tool, but I bought this one because it was around 150 to 160 bucks. What we have is a brake line flaring tool. This one is kind of like a reloading press. You basically load your brake line into one of these size clamps and you operate the handle and it crimps it for you. This is a fancier, more streamlined version of one of these, which is a double flaring kit where you would clamp the hose in this deal here. Then you put one of these dies on the end of the tube and then you screw this down and it crimps it for you. I think what I'll do is use this old school method for one end of a hose, and then I'll use the new school version on another end of the hose and see which one's easier. Now I'm using copper nickel as advised by some buddies at work, and it is 3/16 in size. Now, this was about 25 bucks and it came with a bunch of fittings so that I can make a bunch of lines. This also came with these little rubber dust caps on the end. I recommend saving these so that if you have some tubing left over, you can put this back on and it'll keep it nice and contamination free inside these brake lines. Okay, so the first thing you'll notice about using the old school one is that either you need to lay this on the bench or hold everything, and while you're laying on your back underneath the truck, and then you can find the size. It's really worn on here. 3/16, there it is. Okay, then you clamp that in there. Then you want to find the correct size die. Now this one is busted. This is what it's supposed to look like. This is a bigger version, and it has a pin that goes inside the hose. This one doesn't have that because it's broken off, and this kit is really old. But we can try and line it up good enough. It's supposed to stick out as much as that chamfer is, so I'll do that and hold everything, tighten this. I suppose this would be good if you're laying underneath your truck or car to repair a line or something like that, and I'll probably buy a new kit with a die that's not busted. That way I can take something with me when I go in the truck. Now this piece will slide over that, and then lots of pieces now, and then you tighten that up like so. Then you take another piece and you put it in there and you tighten that down. Gusts of wind. Okay, so now you can see what's happened is that the end has scrunched in and started your double flare. Then you could take the pointy end of this and get that to stick in the end of that tube. You get your 7th piece of this puzzle and you crimp that down. And you take this out. Give me a second. There you have a double flare, lopsided tubing end. And now your back hurts because there's rocks in it and you forgot to put the fitting on before you flare the end. Alright, now let's look at how to do it with the new tool. So I've actually never used this before, but I've seen videos of it. What's really cool about this is that it comes with this chunk on the bottom. You can screw right into a vise. You pull this pin out, you load your 3/16 in there, then you want to put this die in there like that. So this part spins, and you want to start out with this one that says OP0. You hold that tight, you push the line in. Now that that's loaded up, you slide this down, you push this pin in, you slide this little wheel to this little arrow with the flat side right there. You hold that, you push your hose in all the way, tighten this. Now we can go to the green ones are the first step, so we'll go to 3/16 and then go to 3/16, and that should be it. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? It's a perfect double flare crimp, and we remembered to put the fitting on first. Now, just to compare the two, this one here is done with the old style method, which I've done a few times actually. You can see it's kind of scarred up where the tooling clamps onto it. It's also lopsided. That might be because the die is broken, because the pin broke off and ended up in somebody's brake line. Then this side is the new tool, which I've never used before, so this is the clear winner. 160 bucks well spent. So that's pretty cool. I'm going to be using this to put brake lines on my rear axle so that I can get that put back onto the truck. The reason I'm not putting this into a T right here is because I want the ability to brake the right and left side individually so that I can make sharp turns. These pieces right here adapt a 3/16 brake line to a -3, I think it's a -3 hose, which is the equivalent of a 3/16. These two hoses are going to go on here, and they're going to connect to the upper link and run back to the frame. That way there's no hoses going up and down from the frame to the axle. It'll just articulate with the suspension links. And with that, the rear axle is pretty much done, except for a mounting point that I need to put on for the suck down winch, but I might do that in another video. So now I can get this turned around, shoved back onto the truck, and get this thing back on its own wheels. If you remember, when I was building this bed, I had cut these holes out so that the shock towers and the shocks could come through. But now I have these edges, and I'm going to put some of this trim onto it. I'm not going to do every single cut. I'm just going to do the insides of here because that's where fingers would go. Kind of makes it look nice too. Alright, so now that the fuel tank has, and the shock towers have its guard on there now, I think it's finally time to mount this battery. I think right here will be the perfect spot for this. This thing came from Barnes with a bunch of hardware. Countersink bolts to fit in these countersink holes. And it also came with a bunch of nuts and washers, but I don't like nuts and washers. I like thread certs, so I'm going to find the correct thread cert for this, and we'll put 4 of them in there. So these are supposed to have nuts and washers too to remove the battery, but I think I'll do the same thing with this through these holes. Alright, now the only thing left now to do is to buy a really expensive Optima battery. Now that this is done, I can run my battery cables back up through these holes, and they can hook to the battery later. And then I can also run a harness that goes to the fuel pump and the fuel level sensor. Let me know in the comments how you did yours. It's 100% not perfect, but I like it.